Hey guys, Wyatt Claypool here. Yesterday, I said Prime Minister Mark Carney and Alberta Premier Danielle Smith's Memorandum of Understanding is going to get no pipelines built. It's effectively a complete nothing burger. Yeah, there's other stuff in it, like they're going to remove the emissions cap and get rid of the clean energy standard on Alberta's oil and gas industry, but at the same time, the industrial carbon tax is doubling, and there's some other things that Alberta oil and gas companies have to do. Effectively, it's a draw. It's important for Danielle Smith to still do to demonstrate she's not being the unreasonable one. She's willing to sign on to anything that Carney says will actually get a pipeline built. But like Conservative Party leader Pierre Poilievre has pointed out, this is basically only getting us towards maybe having a committee that will think about building a pipeline for 2 years. And by the time they're finished, like, really, are we building a pipeline or are we just wasting time? Because Carney could just say, let's build a pipeline, and he could just sign over sign an agreement saying, in this general corridor, we will build a pipeline. We will remove Bill C-69, Bill C-48, all the other anti-pipeline legislation. It would be extremely easy for him to do it. The fact we're farting around means it's not going to happen. But the funniest thing happened yesterday. Despite the memorandum of understanding being probably useless, we still had Stephen Guilbeault, the green freak, decide that this has been too much, and he resigned from Mark Carney's cabinet over this. I love it. It's so petulant and stupid that over nothing, he's suddenly leaving. Let's just get right into this, guys. Hey, like, share, subscribe, do all that fun stuff. I also want to later on get into the different liberals I think may actually be leaving cabinet now, because Stephen Guilbeault leaving was kind of a shock to me. I assumed that he thought he could kind of control the government a little bit from his current position, even if he doesn't agree with everything. He'll have his impact. But right here, it says on Stephen Guilbeault's post, it says, this afternoon, I informed the Prime Minister of my decision to resign as a Minister of Canadian Identity and Culture, Minister responsible for official languages, Minister of Nature and Parks Canada, as well as his lieutenant in Quebec. You can find my full statement below. Now, most of this is just dumb prattle. So I'm just going to go to page 2 where he actually starts to vocalize what his problems are. This is going to take me a little bit, so you can just rest easy knowing that I'm reading this. Maybe I'll even take it off screen because you guys don't really need to stare at the text here. So it says, first, there was no consultation with the Indigenous nations of the west coast of British Columbia or with the provincial government, who would be greatly affected by this agreement. Furthermore, a pipeline to the west coast would have major environmental impacts, particularly as it could cross the Great Bear Rainforest, contributing to a significant increase in climate pollution and move Canada further away from its greenhouse gas reduction targets. And this is the funny thing about Carney. He's like really splitting the baby. He keeps saying that absolutely I'm trying to hit the Paris climate targets. And then he kind of just prattles along the same way Trudeau did, hurting the economy, passing green legislation, but he's never actually going to go full bore into trying to make us hit those targets. We'd have to destroy the economy to hit those targets, but Stephen Guilbeault wants us to do it. By the way, someone can like tell me if I'm wrong, but I've heard the Great Bear Rainforest is like this monstrously large piece of land. It's so arbitrary in its size. It goes through different biomes, and it basically is a way of saying you can't do anything in Northwest Ontario. Oh, everything is the Great Bear Rainforest. Like last time I saw it, like it's both on the island and not on the island, and it expands like the size of a European country or whatever. This isn't like some very small sacred bit of land that we should be protecting. This is like a massive swath of property. But now going on to his next point, lifting the tanker ban on the West Coast would also significantly increase the risk of accidents in the region. The moratorium was established in 1972 following a unanimous vote in the House of Commons, notably because navigation in the Hecate Strait is highly dangerous. Its removal would also hinder the creation of a maritime conservation area in the Great Bear Sea, a project of our government has been actively developing with Indigenous partners and the government of British Columbia for several years, protecting more than 100,000 square kilometers of this ecologically sensitive region. 100,000 square kilometers. So yes, the Great Bear Sea and the Great Bear Rainforest is effectively a giant grift. It can just be as big as you want it to be in order to just stop development. And again, we don't even need to keep reading. It's just high pitched whining from Stephen Guilbeault over nothing. Nothing's going to be gotten done. Do you think Polyev would just be saying there's not going to be a pipeline if there was going to be? Because he'd look like an idiot within like a few weeks if there was actually like a big pipeline agreement signed and like a bunch of oil and gas companies were flanking Carney as they talk about the possibilities of different routes they're going to go on. That would be a different story. Polyev's team has no doubt seen everything that the government has said and done and said, yeah, these guys are not serious about actually getting a pipeline done. That's why Carney still gives a veto on any plan to David Eby and First Nations in British Columbia, which are mainly represented by hard left activists, even though most First Nations people would be perfectly fine building a pipeline because it turns out most people aren't hard left activists, but it's just who ends up getting into their governments and representing them. So yeah, this is a bit awkward for Carney. He just, did his big fake pipeline agreement. Not only is it effectively already being called out as not doing anything by the conservatives, but you also have his own people saying, I'm done. This government isn't environmentalist enough. So he's basically, and I've said this before, Mark Carney is brilliant at triangulating the exact thing to do to make everybody mad at him. And this is just another example. The last time I brought this up was probably the Air Canada strike. Like he found the perfect way to make the business industry, to make public sector unions, to make liberal voters ticked at him, which is why one of the MPs we're going to be talking about a bit actually criticized him over that too. But let's just quickly jump over to what Mark Carney said upon Stephen Guilbeault's exit. No doubt, I'm actually at the Alberta UCP AGM this weekend. No doubt, Danielle Smith is going to be like beaming at the fact that Stephen Guilbeault is gone since they were like personal enemies. Again, I think that Danielle Smith probably very well knows that this MOU is not going to do anything. But again, for media strategy's sake, she has to be as open as humanly possible to working with Mark Carney. Because if she even gives 1% of the impression she doesn't want to work with him, well, the media and the liberals will say, see, there's no pipeline because Danielle Smith was not sweet and nice enough. So she has to be as nice as humanly possible. And then when there's no pipeline after maybe another 4 or 5 months and there's everything's completely broken down, then she can slam him being fully justified in doing it. Anyways, so here's what Mark Carney said about Guilbeault leaving. He said, whether in civil society or in cabinet, Stephen Guilbeault's leadership to advance sustainability has consistently shaped a more hopeful horizon for future generations. As Prime Minister, I have been deeply grateful for his counsel and contributions to our new government, which shares his fundamental commitment to climate ambition and climate competitiveness for Canada. I like how even in this statement basically saying bye to Stephen Guilbeault, he still has to shoehorn the idea in that this is a new government, guys. Not like that old stupid Trudeau government. This is a new government because Mark Carney's in it, and pretty much everyone else is the same. Oh well, they have Gregor Roberts, guys. Big win there. They have the former mayor of Vancouver who screwed up housing as the housing minister, and that's also leading us into talking about some of the people who may leave. Because I'm hinting heavily at Nate Erskine-Smith. He was the one who criticized the Liberals previously over how they dealt with the flight attendants unions issue with Air Canada, and he has been highly critical of the MOU as well, and a lot of other things. He's been critical of the budget. It's been bad, but I was skeptical of this trending politics graphic when it came out a few days ago. I still don't fully agree with it, but Stephen Guilbeault would have been somebody whose face is on this graphic I would have disagreed with putting it on. And I have been proven wrong that Stephen Guilbeault was absolutely willing to leave. So right here it says rumored Liberal MPs set to leave caucus. And so they have Bill Blair, Mark Miller, Jonathan Wilkinson, Melanie Joly, Nate Erskine-Smith, Stephen Guilbeault, Chrystia Freeland, and Karina Gould. So right off the bat, I just want to eliminate the three I think are still just not leaving. Maybe I'm going to be proven wrong, and I will be pleasantly surprised if I'm proven wrong. Karina Gould, Melanie Joly, Mark Miller, I don't think any of those are going. The rest, actually highly likely to leave. These guys may end up piling out of the clown car with Stephen Guilbeault. And although Stephen Guilbeault is still a backbench MP and he says, "Oh, I'm going to keep representing from my, like the prime minister saying, "Oh, he's going to be a great asset to our team, still in our caucus." I don't see Stephen Guilbeault as being the type of guy who sits in the back benches for 3.5 years. I think he leaves. Like, it's more likely that he puts on the orange jumpsuit again and climbs the CN Tower than he actually, sticks around for 3.5 years just making no more noise. And the NDP have said at their leadership race that they would not accept Stephen Guilbeault if he wanted to cross the floor. Nobody asked, like Stephen Guilbeault did not ask, but that was a question asked to the NDP leadership candidates. And the fact that they universally said no, it's like, guys, are you stupid? If there's a first round draft pick to be an NDP MP who's currently in the Liberal caucus, it's like Stephen Guilbeault followed behind shortly thereafter by Nate Erskine-Smith. But let's go through the ones here that are actually potentially going to leave. So Bill Blair, sitting currently, I believe, with no cabinet position. The man is in his 60s. If you're in your 60s and you're in politics and this is not your first term, leave politics. You're in your 60s and you're a backbencher, just leave. It doesn't always happen. Some people can be like really great, just representatives of their constituents, but Bill Blair is an ambitious person. If you're an ambitious politician in multiple terms and you're in your mid 60s, you should probably just resign. And we have had rumors that he will go take some ambassador position, some European country, Germany or something like that, or I think maybe even the United States. So yeah, he'd be out. Jonathan Wilkinson on the other right side, he may actually resign because Ralph Goodale may resign as the UK High Commissioner for Canada. And he actually left the cabinet with Trudeau and stopped running back in 2019. And so he never was defeated. He just didn't run again. But he's like 86 years old or something like that. And so he's probably going to be wanting to leave as UK High Commissioner at some point. And there's been rumors that Jonathan Wilkinson would be interested as another guy I don't believe has any important position in the government right now. He may end up leaving. Plus, Jonathan Wilkinson, I believe he's actually a British Columbia MP. Correct me if I'm wrong. And he's also opposing of the pipeline and the MOU. He has a very clear reason to leave. He has a very good opportunity to go to do something else now. So now we have Nate Erskine-Smith. If you remember the story of Erskine-Smith, I've told it before, he wanted to be housing minister. So after Carney became prime minister before the last election when he wasn't even an MP himself, he made Erskine-Smith the housing minister in his mini cabinet. And he got to be minister for 3 weeks until after the election. And then yeah, he was just thrown aside and he's a backbench MP again. And he's been very jaded about it, completely chapped. And so he's probably going to want to go and run for Ontario Liberal leader because if you remember, he came very close to beating Bonnie Crombie in the last Ontario Liberal leadership race. Crombie's gone, so he's kind of like the heir apparent out there. And so, like, what is he going to do? Whine at the back of the Liberal Party forever, or is he going to go do something real? He's an ambitious guy, and right now there's nothing for him in the Liberal cabinet. He didn't like the budget. He didn't like the MOU. He didn't like the way that they've done labor disputes. And so him as a more progressive, greeny Liberal like Stephen Guilbeault has a good reason to leave. He hasn't left yet, even though the Ontario Liberal leadership race started on the 19th. That's more of a consequence of just the fact that you're not going to leave mid-budget vote. You're not going to leave before the session's ended because you're going to get all these people attacking you because you're not enough of a team player and all that stuff. And you'll have a lot of jaded Liberal MPs maybe like endorsing all of your opponents. So Stephen Guilbeault, we've already talked about him. I don't see him sticking around for like 3.5 years for nothing. And Chrystia Freeland, quite literally, wants to like be the CEO and the president of the Rhodes Society and the Rhodes Foundation, like the Rhodes Scholarship Foundation. And she already has the job. She is going to be the new CEO and president or new warden of it on July 1st of 2026. And I don't think that she won't want a vacation before that. So I see her resigning from cabinet well before July 1st, maybe over the winter break, because what's she going to do? Sit through another spring session, another winter session in like February or March? For what? She has no position. She literally doesn't have a cabinet role. She resigned from them months ago. And so I think that you're going to find that Freeland is also going to be leaving over the winter or maybe a little bit into the next year. alongside Erskine Smith, because Erskine Smith does need to leave pretty soon because he needs to run for the Ontario Liberal leadership, and he can't exactly do it while he's stuck in Ottawa all the time. But anyways, that should be it for me today, guys. In this video, hopefully you found it interesting. I will be back probably tomorrow talking about 1BC and British Columbia politics again, because there was a hilarious exchange in the legislature once again. This time not with Dallas Brody, the 1BC leader, this time with 1BC House Leader Tara Armstrong asking the NDP about the BC Teachers Federation curriculum suggestion or teaching suggestion of teaching children about queering the outdoors. That is real. That is not fake. That is a true thing that they want to teach kids. Anyways, with all being said, thank you guys for watching. See you all later.